Hi, guys. Welcome to Magic and Media, brought to you by the Vibe Collective and me, Carly D. This podcast blends magic with the current pop culture news and moments to show you that magic is all around us every day. We just have to look around and find it. So we find the metaphysical and magic in the world all around us and share it with you. Welcome to Magic and Media. So, we've got a couple interesting topics this week. Lots going on. I would say in the world of nostalgia. That is where we're going to start. That is our first topic. And when I say nostalgia, we are in the year 2026. But I'm going to take you back to the year 2006, where two millennial shows that are having a big comeback right now were all the rage. If you are a millennial, you probably remember Laguna Beach on MTV, following teens in California. It was really one of the first reality shows, but the main characters in it were Elsie, Steven, Kristen. Kristen Cavallari is still very much in the podcast media world. I will say a lot of the other kids, they were kids when they were on Laguna Beach, but the people from Laguna Beach have probably more quiet lives, but this reunion they're doing in 2026 is happening right now. So Laguna Beach was a huge show in 2006. I know I watched it in high school. I am a millennial. So that was super nostalgic to kind of remember that time and go back to 2006, right? So stick with me. Right around the same time, very popular, big reunion show just happened with Disney, Hannah Montana or Miley Cyrus. So we have two big from 2006 shows that have a big millennial element to them having reunions this year in 2026. So really showing it's been 20 years, since these very formative for some people shows have been on. I would also say that these shows were like kind of a time when things were shifting, right? In 2006, the internet was coming up. There was lots of new technology, and we were just learning about these things. And now it's kind of interesting to reflect on 20 years later where we are, how things look so differently. And as millennials, we really are one of the first generations that's lived with technology in this way. And we really are the generation that grew up with technology, and the way we consumed media in 2006 was even so different than the way we're consuming media now 20 years later. But we're still, going back to that same content with Laguna Beach and Hannah Montana. So it's very giving me reflection vibes, which a lot of where I feel spiritual work lies is in reflection or in self-reflection. I always say tarot cards are just a big act of self-reflection and looking at parts of our lives and really sitting with it and thinking, feeling, analyzing what is happening. So with all of this nostalgia coming up from 2006, I do think it's beneficial to reflect, look back where you were in 2006, what your interests were, what you were drawn to, what creative pursuits, movies, shows were you drawn to at that time that you can kind of use now to motivate you, inspire you. I think that there was a big call for authenticity in the last year, for being original, for being yourself. I think in the technological age, in the age of social media, we see often almost like a loss of originality. So I think that that is something to pay attention to. Look back on in 2006, before we had social media and all these mood boards and kind of stuff all trending and influencing us. What did you just like because you liked it back then? So use this nostalgia to have a little bit of self-reflection. Now, another reason I wanted to touch on this nostalgic kind of chapter we're having as millennials is that there was some planetary aspects happening in 2006 that we are seeing come back around now in 2026. So let me see if any of these resonate with fellow millennials. Saturn and Leo. So this was active in 2006. So in 2006, you were probably seeing lessons around identity, ego, creativity, self expression, pressure to figure out who you are and be recognized. So in that time, it was a lot of finding yourself, right? Leos are about expression and self expression. Why that matters now is that people who were kids and teens in 2006 are now hitting their Saturn return. So, if you are not familiar with Saturn returns, we have a earlier podcast episode more in depth about Saturn returns. So definitely give that a listen and it can explain them more. But Saturn returns are really a time of lessons for sure, growth, often challenges. So they get the reputation, Saturn returns, for being a more challenging time in the end of your 20s going into your 30s, which is where a lot of millennials are. But these collective themes we're all feeling are identity crisis, questions about authenticity and performance, especially with what we are seeing online with influencers, with social media. I think there's a big disconnect right now with how the general world is living versus what we're seeing expressed on screen. And that authenticity is going to start being called out. We are going to see some shifts happening, I think, when it comes to how we present ourselves. And that's that Leo-ness for a lot of us millennials. My best advice with everything, of course, is to be yourself. Like we said, tap into what 2006 you liked, was drawn to, was interested in. I had someone tell me once that if you're not sure what you want to do in your adult life, think about what you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were a kid, right? Go back to what you wanted, what inspired you before you knew all the adult things. And that is a really good way to reflect into the authenticity of yourself. So yeah, go back to 2006. What movies were you watching? What kind of things were, inspiring you? Begs to ask the questions, who are we really? Where have we grown? Where can we grow? I think of this a lot with the Miley Cyrus song, The Climb, right? A lot of us millennials grew up on The Climb. And I think as we get older, that song is still so potent, right? Holds a whole nother message now, 20 years later, than it did then. So the gift of self-reflection, especially with all of this nostalgia around us, can be very interesting. So we do learn from our past selves, and that is definitely a benefit of self-reflection. So that's something to think about for sure. Now, our second topic is something that I have been wanting to cover in magic and media, and I kind of just keep pushing it down the road, or, oh, I'll do that in the next episode. I'll do that in something else. And finally, this week, I was just like, you know what? Let's just talk about this and do a little segment on money magic tips. And I know that this isn't technically like magic and media, but I am going to tie it back to some magic and media, of course. And why I even more so today was like, let's just do it. Where the media comes in. If you are a Bravo fan and you watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, think of Amanda Francis, okay? This is very niche, but stick with me. Money manifestation, the energy we have around money, how we treat money, how we utilize it, and but basically our relationship with it in an energetic sense. She's getting a lot of pushback on this season about the way she uses manifestation and money magic and having an idea around money, a relationship around money that centers more on spiritualism kind of vibe than practicality. I think in spirituality, lots of things can work in tandem, right? So I don't think Amanda is totally wrong. There is energy around money, but it's not the only thing that is going to affect how our abundance comes in, how our prosperity comes in. We have to do the actual work to put behind our manifestation to make it come true. But I do think it's very interesting that on this public stage, she's being very open about how she uses really spirituality manifestation around money. She has got a lot of pushback for it. But I just kind of, a big mission of mine with the Vibe Collective is to demystify and pull the curtain back from this kind of stuff and energy and just kind of make it more real. So yeah, while I think it's interesting, Amanda has gotten a lot of pushback. I myself do use money manifestation in my life. And I wanted to share some stuff with you guys. I do think it's important how we energetically show up with money. It is really a resource, just like our time, just like our energy. So even starting there, I try not to give it too much power in a way where it's this entity that is like overruling your life, right? Money is a resource. We exchange our time, we exchange our energy for it. So don't let it take over. Treat it like a resource, like we do anything else. That's kind of my first thing. But I have a few simple money magic tips you can incorporate into just your practice. If any of these resonate with you, or just kind of are different ways to kind of pay attention to money. So yeah, let's start with our first one. The first one is one I actively practice pretty much all the time, but it is the lucky sevens. There is a ritual attached to this whole kind of idea of collecting these lucky sevens, but I will cover that in another show, another podcast episode. However, we're just going to get into the collecting of lucky sevens. So see the seven right there, like the kind of serial number on a $1 bill. The act of this kind of ritual, or however you want to look at it, is that anytime you're using money, cash money, you are looking for lucky sevens on your ones, and you're collecting them organically. So it's not like you're like, oh, make sure you give me the one with the seven on it. It's like, as you're spending, as you're using money, as you're letting this resource flow through your hands physically, you are paying attention to the ones that are coming back to you and looking for sevens. First, the magic in this is we are putting our attention on our money. We are paying attention to it, and we are letting it flow, right? Like we're letting it flow through our hands. It's nothing crazy. Like I said, this is just paying attention to your money as it goes in and out of your everyday life. And we are, like I said, looking for those sevens. Now, the idea of this ritual is once you get 8 $1 bills, you do the ritual. So we're going to stop there because I will share the ritual on another episode, but start doing that. Start keeping track of your ones, seeing how many sevens you get, and just even that, paying attention to your money, giving it some respect and attention is very good money magic energy. Now, another simple thing is keeping your money flat, right? There is an idea in feng shui and kind of energy that if we fold money, we're cutting it off, right? Like you're chopping off that like flow of energy coming in. So one thing is keeping all of your money flat in a wallet or in your purse, however you carry it. And then even more so, keeping everything in order and knowing exactly how much money you have on you at that time. All of that is to show respect to money, to honor money, to show that you respect it enough to line it up, to lay it out flat, to know how much you actually have. All of that is mindset around money. All of that is kind of energy around money. There's even an old Buddhist idea that if you leave a penny on the ground, you are stopping or kind of blocking your flow of money to you, because if you don't respect a penny, then you won't respect any money. So if you ever see any money on the ground in Buddhist culture, you'd pick it up because you respect all money, no matter how big or small it is. So a lot of these money magic things are really showing respect and just attention to it. Intention and attention is a big part, I feel, of spiritual ritual kind of stuff. Another tip is red wallet or a red change purse. And this comes from the Chinese tradition of the Chinese New Year, which is abundance and prosperity. They give little envelopes, in red envelopes, lots of cash to family and loved ones. Red is the color that's used a lot in, obviously, the Chinese New Year to bring in abundance, good fortune, and things like that. So if you want to bring in more abundance, more good fortune, using a red wallet or red coin purse of some sort in your purse to bring in more abundance. Now, my next one is interesting because I've heard two things over the years from different teachers, from different people who kind of practice different things. And it is the idea of putting your purse or your bag on the floor or not, and how that affects energetically the flow of money coming in. So there's the first idea of keeping your purse on the ground is negative for flow of money. The phrase on the floor purse on the floor is money out the door. And that if we're disrespecting, putting our purse on the ground, then we are not honoring money again, showing it proper attention, and you're pausing or blocking the flow of money or prosperity to you. So that's the first idea, right? And that is honestly what I hear more, and what resonates with me for spirituality. But I have to be honest, so does the second one, which is why it's an interesting one for me, and I want to know what other people think. So like I said, there's the first kind of idea of keeping the purse on the floor is a negative thing and it blocks the flow of abundance. I've also heard that keeping the purse on the ground is okay. In New Orleans, I went to a conference where a bruja told us she actually does it on purpose and puts her purse on the ground because she has lots of ancestors who have passed on who are buried in the ground. And to her, putting her purse on the ground is connecting to them, getting closer to them, and honoring them. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, where I see the big difference is honestly your culture. So this bruja is Mexican, right? She actually lives in Mexico, and in Mexican culture, Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, connecting to your passed on loved ones is a huge, huge part of the culture. So it makes sense to me that in her spiritual mind, being close to her ancestors, having her purse on the ground works for her, is connected to her ancestors. I think there is a lot to say about that. And it really speaks, again, to her culture, to her specific spirituality. But purse up, right? Keeping your purse up and elevated, I do feel has an energetic feng shui that is very helpful as well. So let me know what you guys think. But I prefer to keep my purse off the ground and keep it up just because it's what I kind of learned more and have done more consistently. But I am Mexican, and I do see what the bruja meant with keeping it on the ground as well, connected to ancestors. So what is the answer there? It's kind of interesting to think about the different traditions, but above all, my thing is to do what feels right to you, what feels right to your spiritual journey. So I would even say that this allows you to do what works for you or what intention is working for you. Maybe one day you do want to feel more connected to your ancestors in that way, but maybe more days you want to have that elevated, keeping your purse up. It just really gets you thinking about our rituals, how we do things, and the intentions behind them. Now, the last thing I want to cover with our money magic tips are crystals that can help you with prosperity. So my two favorite crystals for prosperity are pyrite and green aventurine. Those to me are just straight up money crystals, bringing money in, prosperity, abundance. Pair them with a clear quartz, even better, right? To maximize that abundance energy. But I also like some citrine sometimes, especially for work or if you are in sales. Citrine can be very good as well. But if I had to recommend any crystals to put in your purse to draw in more abundance, the first ones I would say are pyrite and a green aventurine. So I hope that those are some fun little money tips for you guys. And yeah, let me know what you think about some of them, or what you do for money magic that resonates and works in your practice. But I do think it is very important to show attention, to show respect to money. And if you're wanting to change up your prosperity, your abundance right now, I think that these are some good ways to do that and just kind of change up that energy, freshen it up if that is something you're looking for. Now, our next topic is about a little sports and astrology. So, basketball player Jaylen Brown studies teammates' zodiac signs to help him better communicate with them. So, Jaylen Brown plays for the Celtics. He is a Scorpio, which is very interesting. He's in a leadership position on the team, which is why he has studied their zodiac signs. He did note that he studied Chinese zodiac signs as well as learning his teammates' Western zodiac signs, meaning Pisces, Aries, Gemini, things like that. He shared, for example, that Tatum, one of his fellow players, is a Pisces. Pisces, according to Western astrology, are known for being empathetic, highly intuitive, and emotionally sensitive. So he said, I learned communication styles that work best for each individual. How cool to see from a leadership standpoint. He saw the value in knowing their signs and knowing their astrology and how to approach them. This is something I definitely use in my everyday life. I always am kind of curious what people's signs are. I'm very rarely surprised when I find out what it is because people do so often fall into the character traits of their sign. And I totally see the value in studying the signs around you, how they respond to things, the best way to treat and act, communicate is huge. I mean, you could even just stop at how to communicate, not even treat and act around certain signs, just how to communicate to them based on their sign. So I think that is so cool. He said, once I started utilizing the astrology, when I speak to each guy different, I didn't know if it would work before the season started, but this stuff definitely works. So he was even a little skeptical at first, it seems like, but of course, after trying it out, paying attention to it, finding out his teammates' signs, like most of us, he was probably not that surprised. Lots of us act like our sign. Not everyone, of course, there's exceptions. Of course, there's people who don't resonate very much with their sun sign. And if that is the case, I do encourage you to check out what your rising is. You may resonate more with your rising than your sun sign. So yeah, Jaylen Brown literally using astrology on his team to help better facilitate communication. Amazing. I love it. I would love to know what other signs the teammates are and what his thoughts are. But that is something you could maybe take into your work, take into your family life, your friend group, anything where you're wanting to better communicate with people, better understand people and how they understand things. I highly, highly encourage checking out the astrology of the people you work with, because you may just realize, like Jaylen, that you are working with a Pisces and they are a little more sensitive and they might not take some jokes as lightly as a Leo or an Aries, who is a fire sign, who's more out there, who's more kind of willing to throw jabs or joke around, and a Pisces wouldn't joke like that. These are things that we can kind of learn from astrology or learn about people to help us better communicate and interact. So take a page out of Jaylen Brown's playbook and study the astrology of those around you so you can talk to them better. Can't hurt. Might help, right? So I love that story. I knew I definitely wanted to share it with you guys on Magic and Media, a little sports media astrology mashup there. So fun. Well, that is our episode this week. Thank you so much for hanging out, for listening to Magic and Media. I hope that you can take some knowledge from today and incorporate it into your own day. And as always, find the magic in your own life.